welcome everybody to the One to Go show presented by Dirt Track Supply. It is Puka. It is the Bert Lehman. It is the Ryan Aho. It is episode 105. And most importantly, hello, fellas. What's shaking?
Again, like I said, everything if I walk fast, that's what's shaking. So I tell you what, so I got one for you. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Owen.
Owen who?
0-4. That's our NFC North, Bert. We won't talk football this week. They absolutely sucked. I'm wearing my Vikings hat. You had your Packers stuff on. They both lost. Even the Lions lost this week to the bye week. So it was 0-4. They're terrible. So episode number 105. I tell you what, I'm up at my parents' house. As soon as we're done with this show, I'm going to get me some Choppy's pizza. All right.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
Pumped about that up in northern Minnesota. But number 105, kind of a little tradition here. I feel like there was a B105, but I don't remember. I feel like there was a B105 car, but I don't remember that. Do you guys have a 105?
I do not have a 105.
Boy, that B105 sounds familiar, Ryan, but I can't think of
I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, but I know Aaron Blacklance is number 5, and I feel like maybe Aaron Blacklance or Terry Blacklance, one of them, I feel like maybe they had a B105 for a while, and I couldn't find it online. I really didn't look that hard, but I do have some 05s. Bert, you got an 05?
I have an 05, he still races. I'm a modified driver, Mike Maschel out of the Green Bay area. He's been racing since the 1990s. I don't have any good stories about him, but he's an 05.
There you go. Send me a picture ASAP so I can get it up. And how about you? You got the 05s?
I got the Dave Vessel 05. All I remember is the maroon late model, I think with yellow sponsors. I don't even know if I was double digits in age back then. I might have been 8 or 9, but that's the only person I know that's, I think, ever been an 05. Who you got?
I forgot that particular car, but now I remember that you said it. I remember Dave Vessel more from 6 cylinders. I feel like it was a Nova, but I'm not really sure. Lamb will correct us, but it that kind of body. But he had like a baby blue car, and then he had the Country Kitchen number 05, and I believe Tim Carlson bought that car from Dave, and then Tim Carlson had some success in the 6 cylinders. So that was then, but then Dave Vessel transitioned to the modifieds, and Steve Vessel, which is Dave's brother, drove for Dave. And in 1990, won the Labor Day shootout in the 05 modified. Okay, so Steve Vessel, incidentally, is the only driver to win the Labor Day shootout in 4 different classes. He's won in the 6 cylinders, the supers, the mods, and in the late model division. So clearly a Hall of Famer over there. And then in 1991, he fired him, said, don't need your service anymore. Actually, Steve focused on the late model. And Jay Kittner jumped in the car for Dave.
Oh, yes, Jay.
He drove it. And his first car in 91, station wagon. Remember that? Carlson had one too, but Jay Kittner in the wagon. And I remember him running the modified in Bemidji. And I don't remember exactly the whole story, but he was side by side somehow with Olofsson at the end of the race. And they gave Alan Olofsson the win. And there was kind of a to-do afterwards, and I don't remember all the details, but I remember way after the fact, they're like, no, Jay Kittner actually won that race. So Mark Tremberth, please post in the comments that story, because I vaguely remember that I was in the Superstock. And then speaking of Superstocks, I got one that kind of stings me, Puka. Chucky DeSmith.
Ah, yes.
So 2000, I started on the front row side by side with them at the Labor Day shootout. They had makeup features, and it was greasy, a little bit greasy, but I've been running a hard tire, and excuse, whatever. And my pit crew wanted to put on just a medium tire, and I'm like, no, the hard's going to be the way to go. I just know it. He got the win, and I was fast at the end, but I got inside of him, and and he held me off. I did win the next day, but that would have been the second time I double swept, and he kept me out of victory lane. But Chucky DeSmith, he won a bunch of races down in Menominee, down in Cedar Lake. I haven't heard from this guy in a long time, but he was a hell of a race car driver.
I remember your mother pacing the lower level by the concession stand during that race. I wanted to hug her, but there was no way you were going to contain her. So Sue, I remember that day I was stressed out, and I think she did say something. I knew it was something with the tire. Either you told me after, or she told me at the time that we were all telling Ryan to do this tire, but he wanted to do this tire. And so anyway, you know the rest of the story, but
probably
she was stressed. Let's put it that way.
Let's just say you remember the ones that you lost more than you remember the ones that you win. Because I feel like, man, I had such a good car that year, and it just stung that I'm like, I should have won that race. Actually, I started front row. I fell back to fourth, I believe, in that one, and had to work back up into second, and I got next to him. But, yeah, so Steve Vessel, Dave Vessel, Jake Hittner, who's obviously related to the Vessels, and then good old Chucky DeSmith himself. So, you know, we had enough 05s there and stuff. We probably don't need to jump into a 5. Just kidding, Bert. Just kidding. Bert, I know you got a number 5.
You're messing it for me because I was going to say I cannot think of a single number 5.
Not at all. Now, I tell you what, give us obviously MJ McClung, right? That's in Eastern Wisconsin. That is the number 5. I know that you used to pit for him. Give us a couple of good stories you have about MJ on the track, off the track. I mean, I know that's a guy that was close to your heart there.
Probably the greatest night at the racetrack for me was during the fair race in 1993. My grandfather had passed away, and our family decided to, because my grandpa was on the fair board for more than 40 years for the Shawano County Speedway, and he was president for like 17 of those years. Our family decided to give trophies away to the feature winners during fair night. And heading into that night, before the feature, I told MJ I would see him in Victory Lane. And then, jokingly, he said, well, I'll drive by there after the race is over. But as fate would have it, it was like a movie script. He won the feature that night. And so I got my picture take. This is him in Victory Lane, me presenting the trophy to him in 1993. This is one of my best favorite photos, obviously. And I can't remember I don't know. I can't remember if it was the same year or if it was a different year. During the fair race, they had a celebrity/media race. So we got the race, and since I wrote about the races for the local newspaper in Shawano, I got to race in that race. We raced hobby stock cars, and I had the fastest car. I actually raced my friend's car. I had the fastest car, but I didn't win. But anyway, I wasn't used to driving a stick shift, and you have to do some shifting. And my biggest fear was snubbing the car out in front of the grandstand and not being able to get going. So my friend let me pack the track in his hobby stock car, and I saw one of MJ's crew members as I was pulling out onto the track to pack. So I'm waving to him, and then I saw him get a big smile on his face. And then all of a sudden I felt a tap. Somebody hit me in the rear end. Well, as it turned out, MJ was right behind me, and the crew member told him to go like this. And so he gave me a little tap, and so that was kind of cool.
Did it rattle your cage a little bit? Did you kind of get a little nervous?
No, I didn't get nervous, but it's like, who's hitting me? I'm not even out on the track yet.
So I've raced, you raced, Puka hasn't raced, now his better half raced, So Puka, we're gonna have to get you in a car. You're the only one in the group here hasn't.
No, I raced that night. I raced in the regular races.
Did you race?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You had that car that you guys built.
Yeah, I putted around. I started last in the heat, of course, finished last, and then
He was way faster than you.
she was much better. Well, like I told her, I was tuning the car. I was out there to test, fine tune that thing, and then the feature, because this was late August, so it was points, and I was like, well, I don't want to screw anything up. So, for those of you who haven't raced, you're bolted in that thing. It's not like you're looking around. It's like, so I'm in that thing, and I crossed the flags, and I kept looking to see where they were. And once they got out of sight, they'd be lapping me. I think I gave it 2 more laps, and then I just, pulled off.
Polka Bert, I remember that. He was like when Ricky Bobby came back in Talladega Nights after his injury, right? Oh my god, are those the other cars? Like that was Polka.
And, well, in the celebrity / media race, going back to football, Brian Noble, former linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, he raced in that race, and he would have won the race. He lapped the entire field except for me, but then his car broke. So technically, I think I was the only one on the lead lap, so I think I should have won. But
right.
Anyway,
I would have stuffed him just for being a passenger.
But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I had never raced before, so I mean, I remember going into the corner and the car would start to slide, and it's like, oh, I must be doing pretty well. And then I watched the tape afterwards, and no.
So Puka, you got any number 5s that stick out to you?
Well, Casey Fran.
There you go. There's a name from the past.
There's a name out of the relic, yeah.
Yeah, he was number 5, and then he was number 28 after that too.
Yeah.
So, how about Ryan Aho?
Number 5?
So Gary
How
Taylor,
were you racing?
number 5. I don't remember what year this was. Maybe 96, maybe-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. So maybe it was earlier than that. But Gary Taylor had a number 5, okay? And for whatever, I blew a motor in my car, and I was right up there in the points. I think I was maybe either leading or second in points in Hibbing. And he says, hey, why don't you use my car? And so I ran his car. That was I completely forgot till now. I actually ran a number 5.
Ah.
So I completely spaced that. So there's a bunch of number 5s. We could go on and on, but Birch was that's the one we wanted to hear about because that's his guy. That's his guy. So this episode, of course, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply, our friends out in Watertown, South Dakota. Ron and Trevor Anderson out there, home of the Aero chassis. They've built winners for a long time out there. You need stuff worked on. You need stuff serviced over the winter. Get a hold of them. They can get any part. They're parts distributors for everybody. And give their chassis a chance. If you're out in that area, whether it's a street stock, super, mod, Midwest mod, whatever, they'll build it. But Dirt Track Supply, thanks a lot to those guys. But what do you say we get to a little recap of this past weekend? Not a ton of racing, but it all kind of started last Tuesday down at Cherokee, just kind of on a whim. And maybe you guys know this, but it felt to me like they just kind of threw this show out there, like literally in the last couple weeks before it, and kind of not really a planned deal, but they had the prelude to the finals down at the Cherokee Speedway. What's your guys' thoughts on that one?
Well, as I stated on last week's show, I was looking through schedules for a lot of the drivers because I needed to pick a driver because we're in a hotly contested battle for the lead, and I couldn't find this race on any driver's schedule. Well, as we found out, now we know why we couldn't find it on the schedule, because none of the drivers had it on their schedule because they weren't going. What was it, 15 late models there? And I would say most of them were local. I'm assuming local late models because there were only a couple. I mean, Overton was there and Madden was there. I'm not sure what up.
Bales was there. Yep.
Bales, yeah. Madden.
And
Larson.
I picked Overton. He started on the front row, and I'm like, he's going to win. And I think it was Bales that was leading, broke a drive shaft. Yep. Came up and it ripped his spoiler off. And Dalton Wilson, do you guys know how old he is? I feel like he's kind of a young gun, but local guy Dalton Wilson held off a hard-charging Overton at the end without a spoiler. I remember Wilson saying, I can't believe he hung on to that thing. I can't believe he was there without a spoiler. I was surprised he was even in contention, but it is Brandon Overton. But kind of, any idea how old Dalton Wilson is? I feel like he's pretty young.
I do not know how old he is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have any info on him either. But yeah,
now if Overton would have won, I mean, he maybe would have had some issues with the spoiler height.
Possibly. I feel like I did the best out of everybody. Would they have 12 maybe sprint cars? I think Brent Marks won 5.
12 sprints and 5 big block mods.
Unbelievable. So
did you guys see it? How was the crowd?
I didn't see anything.
I didn't see.
It wasn't what I would say fantastic. Kind of a swing and a miss. I mean, they put on a lot of shows. Heck, they still got one more coming up here. What is it? The
Blue Gray 100.
The Blue Gray, yeah. They still got that coming up here very soon. Kind of, I don't know. It's kind of one of them deals. Hey, swing and a miss. They tried it. It's hard to have a show like that, unless you're planning it. I figured maybe if it would have been Wednesday, right? Because they had Thursday was time trials, right? And then they had racing Friday, Saturday. I don't even know how far it is from Charlotte, North Carolina to Gaffney, South Carolina. I don't feel like it's that terribly far. But
yeah, I'd say probably 3 hours with a rig, something like that.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised, but what's your thoughts?
I have a couple of comments. First comment is, I mean, we've talked a lot on the show and, looking at the schedules for next year, everything is, 25,000 to win, 30,000 to win, 50,000 to win. You put together a show of 7,500 to win. It doesn't even register with drivers anymore. The top echelon drivers, it's like 7,500. We're going to save our equipment. Well, although they were only racing for 12,000 and 12,000 in Charlotte, but we're going to save our equipment for the big show that's coming up. And my second point is, living where I do in Northeast Wisconsin, Shawano Speedway for like 10 years had a World of Outlaw event the week leading up to the USA Nationals in Cedar Lake. So you always assume, well, we're going to get all these cars from Fairbury because they're going to come up to Shawano, then they're going to go to the USA Nationals. But it just never happened because drivers are, unless you're following the Outlaw Tour, drivers are saving their equipment for the big show, the 50,000 to win show. They don't care about the 10,000 to win show.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that in coming weeks as we kind of dissect the schedules, that have been already posted for the World of Outlaws of Lucas. Of course, the XR Super Series. We're going to really dissect that. And that's going to be, I'm telling you, it's really become interesting. And that's going to be a fun topic because there's a lot of things that come to mind, but we could be here for the next 3 hours talking about that. But we're going to save that for a whole nother show. But, I'll give them credit. They tried it. I probably wasn't the most profitable. Maybe they had sponsors for that deal to kind of make it happen. Hopefully on the racetrack side of things, they didn't lose a bunch of money. Hopefully they were able to at least kind of make it work financially. So that way it's going.
And looking at their website prior to the races last week, I saw something that I'm not sure how much of the proceeds, but was supposed to go to Shriners Hospital. Okay. I think they tried to do something good, and they thought they could piggyback on the finals in Charlotte, but it just didn't work out.
It didn't. I got a question for you guys. Are you surprised, right? 15 late models, and of course, Madden was a scratch for the feature. So you're looking at it, you got Brandon Overton on the front row. If I would have told you before that race, Brandon Overton's not going to win, and really, he's not even going to, he didn't even get the lead. Ross Bales probably should have won that, but he broke a drive shaft. Looking at the field of cars, are you surprised that Overton didn't get it done?
Well, I think I picked Overton, didn't I?
Right.
Or maybe I didn't. I can't remember if I had picked it for, because we only pick one. But yeah, very surprising. He's he won that, the G.O.A.T. Didn't he win the G.O.A.T.? Right? That
so.
G.O.A.T., that $20,000. That was a weeknight show. And of course, that might have hurt them just a little bit too, being, like I said, trying on a Tuesday night. But yeah, interesting that he wasn't able to put it in victory lane.
Absolutely. So let's get to the World Finals. Of course, that was the kind of big one this weekend. We're gonna dissect that here in a second. Let's do a little bit of a recap. Some people maybe haven't had a chance to see who won or whatever. So the late models, flat out domination. Let's just face it, Superman was Superman. He got it done both nights. And in the sprint cars, David Gravel night 1, Brent Marks night 2. Of course, you said, Puka, Brent Marks, he also won down over at Cherokee. So he had a pretty good weekend himself. But what stuck out to you on the races? Bert, I know that you had a Eastern Wisconsin guy, right, haul the car down. And, of course, they had a Western Wisconsin guy driving it. So I think they're going to kind of go back and forth on that. But talk a little bit about that.
Well, Jesse Glenn's raced a late model down there, owned by Ricky Lemon, who owns
Mullins.
Mullins.
Mike
I
Mullins.
had a brain lock there.
You're going to get in trouble now. You're going to get in trouble.
From what I read on Facebook, they had transmission issues early on in the weekend, and I believe they changed that out. And I didn't see him actually race. I only watched the features. I think Puka saw him race, so Puka might have some more insight on that.
I know he just missed transfer by 1, I think, both nights. He was there. He contended. He moved forward. A learning experience, I believe. Looking at it, his first open experience, right? His first time really in a rocket. He's always been in an MB, so that's different. So then he's down there. He's kind of getting thrown to the wolves because anybody that was anybody in dirt late model racing was at this event. So I think he contended and immensely talented. So it'll be interesting to see, how he can take that first step now and progress from there. Puka, did you get a chance to watch good old Jesse Glenn's a little bit?
Yeah, well, he just did his patented move. We truck her up to the top, and I said he looked good. Like I said, I've never raced a late model, but to me it was probably just a tire thing, trying to probably figure out all those tires. But yeah, like I said, I think I saw both B features, and he was enough in the pack where Ashley was like, "There's Jesse Glenn's, he's coming." So like I said, rocket track he's never been to, but yeah, I'm sure he had a time of his life, and good for him. Congrats. And, hopefully we'll see him in that seat quite a bit more this in 2022 here.
Yeah, and I talked to Ricky Lemon a little bit, and I said, "Are you guys doing any winter racing?" And it sounds like that car is going to Florida, but they're still deciding if that's going to be Glenn's, Mullen. I don't think they have that quite figured out yet. So I'm not sure what the situation is going to be. I know that he's very loyal to, of course, Mike Mullen, but he also sponsors Glenn's. Maybe they can get another car. I'm not sure what the plans are, but it looks to me at this time that might be kind of a split seat kind of deal. So I'm not really sure if they have one driver that's going to lock in or if it's just going to be kind of bouncing back and forth. That's an interesting deal because I think Glenn's and Mullen don't seem to have quite the same driving style. Glenn's is up on the wheel a little bit more than Mullen, but I wonder how much they'll have to change between them if they're bouncing back and forth.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be well, even Florida. One guy could do East Bay and one guy could do Volusia.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I'd like to see them guys get down to Vado first, right, and then head over. But I guess time will tell. So, did you happen to see JD's victory lane comment on day 2 when he won? Did you see that?
I did not.
I didn't either.
Actually, he goes, I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't have it written down exactly what he said, but essentially, with all the cars that are here, we're in the racing capital of the world, and all they pay is $12,000 to win. Like he's like, this needs to be a crown jewel. It's almost offending, right? It's almost offensive that it only pays 12 grand to win. Like, and he flat out laid it right out there in victory lane. What do you think? I think he's right. What do you guys think?
I disagree because they have no beginner classes and they're paying 3 premier classes. They're paying $34,000 per night just to the winners, so, and I don't think we covered that enough last week. We kind of talked about it. Even me, I was just kind of honed in on the late models. Like, yeah, 12 grand, but it's 12 grand for the sprints. It's 12 grand for the lates, and it's 10 grand for the mods. I mean, $68,000 in 2 nights just to the winners, just to the winners. I think it's pretty fair. I mean, the crowd looked good. I mean, because, and the other thing to think about is that's the only event, correct me if I'm wrong, where you get to see the Woo Lates and Woo Sprints at the same race, right? Because I think they flip down in Florida the week that the Woo Lates are in East Bay. Then the sprints are at Volusia. I don't even think I don't think the sprints even go to East Bay.
Last year, because of COVID, they had Cedar Lake had them, right? They had both of them. But I think typically they don't. Bert, I'm going to let you weigh in on this, and then I got my thoughts. Obviously, Puka's a money guy. He's a capitalist. He's not a race car driver. He's not a team owner, okay? He's looking at it the business side. Bert.
Well, I mean, Puka brings up a good point, and actually I was thinking about that point too recently because, yeah, I mean, you go to the USA Nationals, you have the super late models, that's the premier division, and then you have the crate late models, which I'm sure they're not paying a lot of money. Where in Charlotte you have 3 premier divisions racing in the pro. 2? Okay, whatever.
Bert, we finally got him to admit the mods are not a premier division. We've been working him.
I don't consider them things modified. They're sprint cars that look like a modified.
But,
yeah.
But I mean, maybe the drivers this year were making a statement that they have to increase the purse because it was one of the lowest late model car counts there. I mean, they've had upwards of, 60 cars there where they had 48 this past weekend. So maybe the drivers are making a statement saying, we're not coming unless you increase the purse.
And I look at it differently. See, no matter what class I was in, I didn't give a crap what the other classes were making. That had nothing to do with me, right? I'm like, I could be in a super stock and I'd be like, I don't care what you're paying the mod late models. And I've been to them shows, right? And they're like, well, the late models are getting whatever, 3 grand to win. We can't afford to pay everybody. Really not my problem, right? I mean, like pay me, right? So as a driver, as a team owner, I look at it a couple ways. Lucas Oil, World of Outlaws is really struggling to try to keep pace with Lucas Oil. Would you agree? Right?
Yeah.
Lucas Oil announced that they got a whole bunch of big paying shows. Now you have the XR Super Series. They got a bunch of big shows. And now you got the little old World of Outlaws down here kind of like, just kind of lagging behind, so to speak. The premier event, the final event of the year for the Lucas Oil Series, their season finale is $100,000 to win. Okay. And I get it. They don't have all the other classes, but $100,000 to win for one class is more than all 6 features combined for the winner at 2 days at Charlotte, right? So if they can figure out how to pay $100 grand to win and pay back, they're paying more there. That probably covers first and maybe second, right? At the Charlotte deal, maybe even first, second, and third. So that's just the winner, right? So I look at that, and they have access. I mean, you're in Charlotte. I mean, it is like the mecca of racing in the country. And it's, if they want to be known as that, right now it's still it is NASCAR country down there. But it's almost like, this is just a dirt race. We'll just pay them the regular 12 grand to win. I don't know. I do, as a driver, I'm like, it's almost disrespectful. I look at it like, this is supposed to be the marquee event, the championship weekend, but it's really not a big deal, right? You want to go to the World Finals. Think of the name, the World Finals. The Dirt Track World Championship pays way more. The World 100 pays way more. And they got the World Finals, and it's 12 grand to win. I think they're going to have to take a look at that, because I think it would be extremely easy to uproot that whole event, right? How easy would it be for Barry Braun with XR to say, yeah, they got the World Finals down there, but they're only paying 12 grand. So let's just do something over here. We'll pay 25 grand day one, 50 grand day two. Who cares about the World Finals? The only people that really matters to is the people running for World Outlaw points anyway. Everybody else can chase the money. I think that leaves the door open for somebody to come in and just kind of dismantle that whole thing. That's kind of my thoughts.
Well, I mean, we don't know what it's going to be next year because they're changing the format, and which we're going to get into. But so yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with next year once they announce their how they're going to run their program next year and how much they're going to pay.
Yeah, and with go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say and like you said, with everything that's been announced with Lucas, everything that's been announced with XR, there definitely is, dirt racing is in a healthy place right now. We're definitely taking a step up. And even last I looked, the USA Nationals on the schedule, but not a mention yet of if it's World of Outlaws, So, well, no, I think it
says on the World of Outlaws.
I think it does on the World of Outlaws ones. I was looking at Cedar Lake. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So yeah. I stand corrected there. But yeah, there's definitely, like I said, if Lucas would have announced their schedule 2 weeks from today, would have been post the World Finals, maybe we wouldn't be having as much of this conversation, But yeah, seeing what's coming, and XR after what they've done, it definitely, it's definitely right to have the conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting, and what Bert's talking about there, fans, is next year is going to be a 4-day event. So this year, the World Finals was a 3-day event, and day one was essentially just time trials for sprint cars and late models. They did run the heats, I believe, for the big block mods, or they were supposed to. They had to change it up because I think the preliminary night or qualifying night rained out, but it was going to be heats on that night. And now next year, they haven't announced what the format's going to be, but it's supposed to be 4 days, right? Now, are they, in my mind, I would love to see them at that event just get rid of time trials. Just get rid of them. Maybe have time trials for the first 2 nights or whatever, and then to line up the finale, do, qualifying off how they did from night 1 and night 2, or a combination of both, have it culminate to where the final feature of the weekend is a big paying show. Make that one big. It can be 12 for the first couple or whatever, but make the last one something special, not this 12 grand to win deal. Time will tell, I guess. What would you guys like to see happen down there with this 4-day format they have?
I mean, I agree with you that the final night has to be a big event. I mean, if they're going 4 days, I mean, you can't have 4 days, or, if you have time trials on the first day and then 3 days of race, you can't have 3 straight nights of 12,000 to win features. I mean, as a fan, why, there's nothing special about that. You have to build up to something. And especially the longer the show, you really need to build up to something. Otherwise, it's like, it's just the same thing night after night.
Yeah, I totally agree. Polka?
Yeah, I'm sure they're really looking at that. And just, Ryan, maybe asking you two is how big of a deal, because I know Blumkus has commented on this, is the facility, because obviously World of Outlaws has to rent this facility. It's, it's owned by the NASCAR people, was it Overton Smith? I think his company, Speedway Motorsports, owns that one. I mean, I'm thinking that place is, I guess Barry Braun's doing the same thing in Vegas though. But they're paying primo rent, but then the fans get a pretty darn good experience. Like I said, you can film it, they've always filmed it because the lighting's good, and how important is that to you as a racer? Does it, even if the purse isn't pizzazzed maybe as much, does it make you feel good that you're, like I said, in this case, you're in Charlotte, you got this, kind of beautiful place. Does it does it do anything for you as a racer?
As a driver, at that level, I would say no. You're down on the entry levels, like when you had the Bristol experience, right, and you had modifieds and IMCA stock cars, they're like, oh my God, like this is unbelievable, right? But I think when you get to that level, World of Outlaw Sprints, World of Outlaw late models, they've been at some pretty amazing places already. They've already been there, done that. Now, as a fan, when you go to Charlotte, you go down there, now you get a whole experience. You got all that racing. You can go to the NASCAR shops, the NASCAR Hall of Fame. There's so much you can do there above and beyond just going to the dirt track. So I think the fan experience is probably more so than the driver experience. When the driver goes there, I'll be honest with you, you don't really have time to really take anything like that in. I remember when we went down to Florida racing and kind of thought, man, when we go to Volusia, which isn't far from Daytona, it's going to kind of be like that. No, it ain't. like you're there, it was nonstop work. You don't leave the track. It's like it's very difficult to get away and enjoy some of them things. So as a driver, I'm going to say no. As a fan, I'm going to say absolutely. I mean, what an amazing place to go to. As a race fan, as a diehard race fan, and that leads me to this, right? The words crown jewel, man, they get thrown around a lot, right? They get thrown around. I think crown jewel, I think World 100. I think USA Nationals, the Dream even, right? The Dirt Track World Championship. What is your guys' thoughts? This is their world finals. Is this a crown jewel? Do you look at this as a crown jewel?
I don't consider it a crown jewel. I mean, you have 2 nights of racing where it's the same amount to win each night. So to me, it's just two nights of racing because you're not building to a big crowning moment. You just have 2 separate shows that pay, the same each night, and there's no crown moment that ends the racing at the end of the weekend.
See, I guess I went back and forth on this all weekend because I know we were going to kind of discuss this. I'm going to look at the late models, 48 late models, plus you get the sprints and the mods as a sport class. But even if you leave that out, 48 late models, I mean, Bert, when we go to Cedar, we're pretty happy at 50, right? And I don't even think they've got to 50 the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe the money's not there, but, and like, of course, I'm fan experience. I'm a fan. I mean, I guess I kind of lean that it is because here's a question for you then, Ryan, you can, and Bert, we can come back to you on this one, and Ryan, you can answer both of these at the same time next. So are the Gateway Dirt Nationals a crown jewel? I mean, they're $30,000. Like I said, this one's 2 nights, 24. I can't remember what the prelim nights are and for the Gateway, but the money isn't too much more, but it is special, and like I said, being in Charlotte to race is kind of special. I lean that it's a crown because I guess if I had a t-shirt, if I was Billy Moore and I won Charlotte, I'd probably list it on the t-shirt, or if I had a model car or something on the box, I probably would. So then I guess it's probably a big deal. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think it's? Do you like my analogy?
Yeah. What's your opinion? I gave you I gave you mine.
I gotta lean more Bert's way, right? And I think this is more of a, how do fans look at it? How do drivers look at it? And myself, I mean, we can kind of break down what we consider it takes to be a crown jewel, right? Longevity of an event is probably a big one, right? So when you talk about the Gateway Dirt Nationals, I would say it's on its way to being a crown jewel, but I would say it's probably, in my opinion, closer to being a crown jewel than the World Finals, just because it's something so incredibly different and special and unique, and it's indoor, and it's just that whole deal. But I don't think there's enough history behind it quite yet. It's getting close. They've done a hell of a job promoting that deal. As far as the World Finals, I wouldn't. I mean, it's the base pay, right? I mean, it's not even a little bit increased. It's like the lowest pay for a World of Outlaw event. Their lowest pay this year was $12,000 to win. I think they had, if you had a multiple day show, some of them were less on the first night. But typically that 12 grand to win show is the lowest paying show to have a World of Outlaw event. In my mind, I mean, if you're paying the lowest pay that they pay, I can't look at it as a crown jewel. I mean, to me, I just can't. And like Bert says, you're not building towards anything. It's essentially 2 regular nights. Is it cool to win there? Absolutely, without question. You win down at Charlotte, the dirt or the racing mecca of the world. Really, it feels probably pretty cool. They probably got a pretty good crowd, really good crowd. It looked like actually. So it is a big stage, but I look at it as it hasn't been around that terribly long, right? What's it been? Maybe 10 years, 12?
Well, it's next year will be the 15th. This was the 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, so now that's what we're changing things for the 15th.
But man, I mean, after 15 years, right? After 15 years, and they're still paying the base pay. I mean, come on. I mean, almost everybody else increases it a little bit, right? I mean, I'm not saying they haven't even jumped up to 15,000. I mean, come on. So I look at it and I'm like, show me the money, baby. I mean, you want this to be a crown jewel, open up your checkbook. And as far as the rent, I don't know how that works. It works different everywhere. I don't, and I have no idea. I got no knowledge behind this, but I do have knowledge behind some situations. And I've seen it a lot of places where there's no actual cost to rent the event or rent the facility, but the facility owner gets all concessions, and gets all that. I don't know if this is how that works there. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know if it's a partnership. Obviously we're talking Charlotte, North Carolina. So, I mean, there would be, if they had to pay to be there, it would be primo, but and that's where World Racing Group's based out of, right? So you think about it, they have the World Finals. The World Racing Group is based out of Charlotte. They're basically bringing them to their home turf, and they still give them regular pay. I don't know. To me, absolutely, I would say it's not a crown jewel. I say the only thing probably lacking is opening up the checkbook and basically show me the money.
Yeah, I mean, those are good points. I mean, I could, I hate to defend them on the purse, in a way, but like I said, with all the classes, it just, I wish I had gone there, just really could see the crowd and see what it's like to really get a feel for it. Because like I said, I know people that have, and they said it's fantastic.
All right, well, that's a little bit on the late model side of things there, but obviously there was some sprint car stuff, and our buddy Keith would be awfully upset with us if we did not talk a little bit about the sprint car stuff too. And really, they don't have, I don't know, I don't even know if they call it crown jewels, right? In the sprint car world, they got the Kings Royal, they got, obviously the Knoxville Nationals, nothing is like those, and they have some big paying shows. It seems like is it a little bit more common maybe to have those 12 grand to win shows or whatever for the sprint car world than it is for the late models? I mean, is it kind of, there's not really much competition, right?
Yeah, they don't seem to have, although with the new schedule, there's a little bit more, and maybe they're kind of using the late model, but, they seem to be in a town and they pack up and they go to the next town and they pack up and they go to the next town. They've got the Jackson Nationals. They've got, in the past they've had Lernerville, but, the Williams Grove, Eldora, of course, the Florida stuff, but Skagit this year was 3 nights. But yeah, they're more of they come to town and the greatest show on dirt, and then they take off and they're doing, I don't know, do either of you have the count how many shows they're well over 100 shows a year, right?
Yeah, about that. Really close. About that. I don't know if they're over that, but they're dang close to that. I mean, they're the true outlaws, so to speak. Now, I got a question for both of you two on a fan aspect, okay? So you talk about the World of Outlaw Sprints. They come into town, they're gone. They come into town, they're gone. Even when there's a one-off event in the late models, it seems like a lot of the fan-driver interaction is lacking. Like by the time the racing event is done, you get down in the pits and bam, everybody's loaded up and they're off to the next track, right? Is that a benefit to a show like this where people can get down in the pits at least before the races and have time to maybe mingle and go meet some of the drivers before the festivities start?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a one night show, you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter when the next show is. The drivers leave as soon as they can get their cars loaded up. I mean, as you know, I brought this up before. You know, Shino Speedway had World of Outlaws for like 10 years, and you know, like early in the week prior to the USA Nationals. And even if the show is on a Monday, the Nationals don't start till Tuesday. As soon as that late model feature is over at Shano for the Outlaws, they're loading up and their rigs are on the road. And if there's more racing after the Outlaw feature, you know, they're gone before the racing program is even over.
Yeah.
To me, that's disappointing to me, right? I used to, my favorite thing, and really what got me involved with racing, obviously my dad raced for years, but what really made me fall in love with the sport and really want to race was not the races. It wasn't like sitting in the crowd as a kid watching racing. I didn't care. Like, I watched a few races, I'd play cards, I'd go hang out with my buddies, I'd watch if I knew somebody out there, but it was really getting down in the pits afterwards. And think about this. You know, who are some of the drivers that you guys remember growing up, whether it was a big event, right, or a local event, that you go down in the pits afterwards, and just because you were able to kind of have that camaraderie with them after the racing event, that it made you really fall in love with the sport? Who's a couple that stick out to you?
I wouldn't necessarily say drivers. I mean, as a kid, I remember going down into the pits, and this was during the days before enclosed trailers. So, I mean, the cars were on open trailers. So, I mean, we were allowed to crawl up on the trailers and look inside the car. And I just remember looking inside the car and just, you know, there's only one seat inside. And, you know, it's just totally different than a regular car. And I remember also one time, and I mean, it must have been right after the races were over, because I was in the pits after the races, and I remember touching the lug nuts, you know, on the rim of a tire, and they were still hot. I had to pull my hand off of them because they were still hot. So, you know, it's not, for me, it wasn't necessarily mingling with drivers. It was just seeing the cars and everything that goes into putting a race car together and what that all entails.
Okay.
I remember hanging around Jeff Hinkemeyer's trailer in the 86, 87, 88, when he had an enclosed trailer, when everyone else had an open trailer, and waiting for him to come around. He'd sign autographs. It was, you know, everyone wanted to see him, you know, and I would say that was something that really made me want to go into the pits. And then later in life, Tom Nesbitt always says the fans are the best part. The fans are the best part. And you know, getting to know him a little bit, and he would be like the last person to leave all the time, right? I mean, he was in no hurry. He just had to get to the next track by, you know, whatever, noon the next day or whatever. But like I said, when I was young, I would say it was Hinkemeyer that really stands out. How about you?
Danny McMahon stuck out to me. He was always like, he would stop what he was doing all the time and just take that extra time with the kids. And, you know, and Bert's situation is different than mine, right? Because my dad raced for 25 years. So, I mean, for me, because I was around it, we had a race car at the house all the time. Seeing that stuff, I'm like, okay, it's a race car. Yeah, we have one of those, right? So that aspect to me wasn't a big deal. But I could see that for Bert, where he's like, we don't have a race car at home. I get to go see a race car. This is kind of cool. I'm up close and personal. And I've seen that. I've seen kids that are that way. And then, you know, it's different because I've seen a lot of kids at the track that maybe dad races, uncle races, brother races, and they're like, okay, we're around the race car all the time, but, you know, hey, we want to go rub elbows. These are our friends. Another guy that rings a bell, Joel Freiderman, right? You know, you mentioned Nesbitt, I'll mention the other Canadian, right? And Freiderman come down, and Jeff Helget, and they used to come down to Hibbing all the time, and, you know, I'd go hang out with them after the races, and I'm like, these are my buddies. And I even got my dad to let Joel Freiderman come over, and he did it for multiple years in a row. And he'd work on his 51 ride at my dad's house on Labor Day weekend, you know, and it was nothing for Jeff Helget to come over to the house. And I'm like, hey, these are my friends. And my dad's like, well, yeah, they're my friends too. I'm like, and I'm thinking, no, they're my friends. And I was a little kid, and just building those relationships and really getting to know the people, understanding the culture. and just the whole aspect of it. But that experience, whichever part you take out of it, is so vitally important to the sport. And really, that's what creates the fan base. That's what builds the future. And even on regular nights, right? We talk regular night racing. You don't see that like you used to on regular nights either. And I think it's hurting the sport overall. So kind of an interesting deal there. But let's talk sprint cars, right? So, what stuck out to you on the sprint car racing? I would honestly say the best performance of the weekend was by a sprint car driver. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll let you guys touch on the racing. I just had a few comments, but so the Wild Child, Jack Ottenchild, the last race, this is supposedly it. Of course, this is Sheldon's dad. I watched the Wild Child win a race, I think in the year, well, Ryan, you were there in the year 2000 out in Grand Forks. It was just a random, I think those promoters paid him, and maybe it was Shots, a couple of guys to come up to Grand Forks because back then they could not get a race. So they paid him a little extra. And, I think he started like 13th, just waxed the field. So last race. So congratulations. He's heading into retirement suite. And, the cold streak kind of continues, 8th and 9th place. Brett Marks, we talked a little bit about him earlier. He won the show at Cherokee. He won the Saturday night event. So he just this week teamed up with Alan Murray. Now, if you recognize that name, Alan Murray is the guy that owns all of Rick Eckert's equipment. So they formed a new team, brand new. They got 2 wins already. They've raced 3 shows, Cherokee, World Finals. 3 wins already. We actually have, if you go to the YouTube page, subscribe there, please. Want to go show YouTube page. Look back, I think earlier this year, like January, February, I have an interview with Alan Murray and get to know him just a little bit better. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Sounds from his interview like they're working towards running full time with the Outlaws. Might not be 2022, but that's kind of the direction they're going. And then lastly, of course, we had, and I'll let you guys comment more on this, is Brandon Overton making his debut in the World of Outlaw Sprint Car.
That was good stuff. Let's just say he's not Kyle Larson. Let's just put it that way. He's not Kyle Larson. Now, you talked about Hoddenchild, right? So on the last night, they kind of let him have the parade lap. He was out front. How did that race end for him?
Ooh, not good. roll over.
We're both Hoddenchilds were in it, but
Yeah,
Sheldon, I think Sheldon was upside down. I think he blew a tire or something. I don't know if he was upside down, but he was involved with it. But yeah, it ended with the Wild Child, Jack Hoddenchild, upside down. So it just is what it is. So Bert, what stuck out to you?
This has been a never-ending topic the last few weeks, but Brad Sweet just does not look like Brad Sweet. I mean, luckily for him, he had a large point lead because he just hasn't looked good the last month, at least the last month. And, kind of lackluster performance again, but he is a champion. So, he achieved the ultimate goal for the season. And then, Donnie Schatz probably wishes he would have got off to a little bit better start earlier in the year because he'd probably be the champion then.
Yeah, he got a 5th and a 3rd and 25th to 3rd on the final night down there. What a run. And he was around the bottom. I mean, the top was good too. Like there was people hustling around the high side, and he flat out got around the bottom of that speedway on the dirt track at Charlotte, drove right to the front. And man, if there would have been a caution with just a couple laps to go, he might have been able to put a bid on for the win in that deal. But just an impressive end of the season for, I guess, the 10-time champ, I think he is, Donnie Schatz. So great to see. It's kind of a homer deal up here, right? He's that upper Midwest guy, North Dakota, a former WISSOTA champion. So we consider him one of our own. So we like seeing that 15 running really good, and he did just that. So, guys, what do you say we get into a little who's hot and who's not, brought to you by
Blue Line Brew is the official beverage of the One to Go show. And maybe many of you saw this, but so a big win for the police. Of course, it was Elections Tuesday. The vote to defund the police in Minneapolis failed. So I know a lot of race fans are pro-police. So I just wanted to bring that up. And Blue Line Brews is definitely pro-police. 10% of their profits go to families who've had the unfortunate incident of having maybe a fallen officer or an injured officer. So you can get this premium coffee Support the police, support the One to Go show. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that their blend Justice is now here. It's kind of a lighter blend. They've got Justice, they've got Stakeout, and we've got the Detective Special. So bluelinebrews.com is where you can order, or just scroll down into the show notes there. You can just click on it, link right over. You can set up the auto ship so you get your shipment every couple of weeks. And like I said, they're big supporters of us, so we appreciate everything they're doing for us, and we appreciate everything they're doing for the police community.
Absolutely. So who do you guys have as far as who's hot?
I mean, for me at the top of the list, I got to go with Superman. I mean, won 2 features at Charlotte, and he was winning features prior to that also. He's just I was reading today an article about his season, and last year he only had in first place winnings, I want to say $83,000, and now this year he's over 400,000 or something like that. So he's really turned it around from last year.
Yeah, I'd say he sure did. Last year he was actually borderline depression mode, if not full out depression mode. And it kind of started, right? He went down to I guess the Wild West shootout, and he was impressive, but then he fell flat on his face after that. Remember how bad speed weeks were for Davenport? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, what's going on here? And then he started to click it off. So yeah, he's really put together a great year. Puka, who do you got?
Yeah, that's what I was going to echo is Davenport. Like I said, big rebound season. That was going to kind of be my point after kind of a tough season last year. But, especially USA Nationals, kind of from the USA Nationals first week of August on, he's really put together a heck of a run with the win at the USA Nationals, the win at the World 100. Did he win the dirt track, right? Dirt track world championship? Oh, no, RTJ did. RTJ did. That's right. So, I mean, I know that JD got knocked out with an engine problem early in Knoxville, but, capped it out, 2 wins here at the World Finals, but he's been very, very impressive. Who do you got?
I got Young Money, Kyle Larson. I mean, when you look at what he's done, right? I'll just give you the short list, so to speak. Knoxville Nationals, Kings Royal, Coca-Cola 600, Chili Bowl, right? Knoxville Nationals and Kings Royal in sprint, Coca-Cola 600 in NASCAR, Chili Bowl in midgets, All-Star Race in NASCAR, Prairie Dirt Classic. We all thought, he's a half-mile guy. He's a momentum guy. He goes to Falls and wins the Prairie Dirt. Really? Front Row Challenge. And then he wins the title for the NASCAR Cup Series. Unbelievable. I mean, it's absolutely flabbergasting for somebody to be at the highest level in all those different forms of auto racing, right? Now, the fan question of the week, brought to you by Cowboy Up Racing, Shane Howell, is this. A couple different questions here. Number 1, is he the best ever? Bert?
It's always tough doing these best ever because there's different eras that you're comparing to. But I mean, just based on his body of work and how many wins in the different divisions, I mean, he's probably had more opportunities than drivers in the past to race all these divisions. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I mean, you could say he's the best ever. I mean, the other drivers that people would always say would be like AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti. And I mean, Tony Stewart has proved that he can win in multiple divisions. But I mean, it's very, very impressive. And I don't think we've ever seen a driver do what Larson has done the last 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. They're hands down. He is, we're living in racing fashion. We're living like about 1990 in sports when we had Wayne Gretzky on top, who still has most of the records. We had Jordan on top, who's got most of the records. Of course, we had great quarterbacks back then, like Montana and such. I think Brady's going to take care of, some of that stuff. But we lived through a great Barry Sanders, as a running back with the Lions. So I think we're like Ryan, you just went through the body of work, whether it's a sprint, a USAC, a late model, a NASCAR. I mean, I'm sure if he ran Xfinity, he would have won there. Now, I guess the only thing for him to conquer is Indianapolis 500. And you offended a bunch of people in Indy earlier when you said, Ryan, you said, the best racing town in the world, Charlotte. Well, I don't know. There's all of our Indiana listeners now, they turned us off because they're like, oh, no, it's Indianapolis. It's Indianapolis.
It ain't even close. Charlotte is greater than India. I'm just the way it is, right? I guess that's a matter of opinion. So let me ask you this, right? Would you rather Tony Stewart in his prime, Kyle Larson in his prime?
Well, I would rather Tony Stewart, not necessarily the wins, but Tony Stewart was controversial, ran his mouth, told you what he wanted. He his press conference, well, obviously Kyle got in a little trouble, so he's really got to watch what he says. But Tony Stewart never watches what he says.
Bert?
I mean, I've been a Tony Stewart fan since he won the Triple Crown in USAC. I believe he was the first driver to ever do that. And I've been a fan of his ever since because he went from dirt to NASCAR. I actually read a book about him, and I think I talked about this on the show once, just a quick I mean, when he was racing sprint cars, he had no money. He would survive with the winning, at least according to the book that I read. He survived by the winnings that he won at the races. I mean, he relayed a story where he raced at Hills Corners down by Milwaukee, and he had just enough money to cover the entry fee, and him and his girlfriend had to split a meal at McDonald's because that's all the money that he had. So, I've always been a Tony Stewart fan. So I liked watching him when he was in his prime.
Humble beginnings, I'll put it that way. I mean, he definitely had humble beginnings. Now, so Stewart, would you say that the most comparable, obviously we're talking about it, I mean, Tony Stewart has to be the most comparable to Kyle Larson. I mean, he's won in so many different things, and Kyle Larson has too. Is there anybody else that even comes on the radar of what these two have done?
Yeah.
I think not in the modern times.
Yeah, and I kind of think the key term is what Bert said is opportunity. I mean, you just look at, of course, Kyle Larson's flying in everywhere, and just you go back say 40 years. I mean, flying was a luxury. I mean, my kids have been in a plane more, than I was until I was age 30, and my oldest is 16. You know what I mean? So to fly in, and the world has kind of changed, but like I said, you take those. So it's why even, just say in the 80s, when Purvis would race NASCAR and he'd race a little dirt, and Dick Trickle would race some NASCAR and race Red Farmer, there was still a lot of that crossover. And that's what I think is really good for building the fan base. With Larson's doing it and Stewart has done it. But I think it's just so, if they would have had that opportunity, maybe guys would have grabbed it a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, that's I guess kind of what I have to say on that. It's just tough to know what could have been,
So you mentioned Indy. Do you think we'll see Kyle Larson run Indy? Do you think he will jump into an IndyCar?
Well, didn't we have rumors last year when we were doing the show? Wasn't there a rumor that someone was, or wasn't he going to test, or did we make that rumor up? Wasn't there something going around?
Maybe.
I thought there was something going around where there was a possible, or maybe it was the first year we were doing the show, maybe. But I thought there was something at one point where there was some sort of consideration.
I remember there was rumors he was going to partner up with Bloomquist and run a late.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
I guess I don't remember the IndyCar deal, but that's the logical next step. I mean, he's won in everything else, midgets, USAC, sprint cars. I mean, he has not won in a Wissota Superstock. I'm just saying. He has not beat Shane Sabraski. It just is what it is. So, the next question I have is this. Do you think we'll see more of this, right? There's so much, like you mentioned, opportunity. These people that are running NASCAR, they got a lot of funding, they got a lot of opportunity. Obviously, there's other talented drivers out there. This guy's truly special. I mean, what he's done is absolutely unbelievable. But do you think we'll see more people trending this direction where they start bouncing around? Do you think we'll see this again?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with money. I mean, if I don't know what Larson's background is or what his family, what his family does for a living. But I mean, to be successful in any NASCAR series, you have to be able to bring some sponsorship with you. And, so it's going to have to be, if a driver's going to include the NASCAR on their resume, they have to have funding behind them, because making it in NASCAR isn't all talent. There's a lot of it is the financial backing that you have.
Absolutely. Puka?
I just don't see it. I think most guys, I mean, you look at Donnie Schatz. Well, look at Overton this week, and he gets in a sprint. It's tough. Donnie Schatz has talked, he's had opportunities to go asphalt, and I think he loves what he does. He's concentrating on that, and it's tough. I mean, like I said, Kyle Larson is like, I'm not even a golfer. Ryan, you're a golfer, but someone once explained to me how dominant Tiger Woods was, in the mid 90s there and into the late 90s, just how much better he was than everybody. I didn't realize it because I'm not a golfer. And that's just what Kyle Larson is. We just take for granted that whatever, Brad Keselowski runs up front every weekend, or Donnie Schatz runs up front, or Brad Sweet, or pick Brandon Shepard. But I think it takes a lot more work than we realize. Shane Sobraski, so I really don't think we'll see it. And obviously he's got a wife that lets him, he's, there's nights he's racing Monday, Tuesday, and then he's, he has Wednesday off, and then Thursday he's showing up at the NASCAR place, and Fridays, he's doing all this stuff. So he's got a wife that allows him to do that too. And if you got a family and stuff, you want to take some time off, I think he's going to be a real rare specimen.
Yeah, I agree totally. And first of all, I wouldn't call me a golfer. I golf. I would not call me a golfer. I would definitely not use that term. That's a very broad term. So how about on who's not?
Well, I want to make one comment too before we move on. I remember when Larson signed with Rick Hendrick, I believe we talked about this on the show, that we were worried that Hendrick was really going to lasso him on his racing and just make him concentrate on the NASCAR stuff. So luckily, Rick Hendrick has let him, explore the other racing series, continue to explore the other racing series, and the fans are the ones who benefit from that.
Yeah, and before we jump on a who's not, I just want to give a shout out to Chase Eliason as well. He's part of the 548 team, so that championship down there for Kyle Larson Hendricks, he's a part of that. So we've interviewed him before. I've known Chase, I haven't really talked to him much in recent years, but I remember him growing up at the racetrack up in Superior, Proctor, and all that. So just a tip of the cap. Congratulations. Couldn't be prouder of a great kid, great racing family, and very, very happy for him and proud of his accomplishments down there. So how about on who's not?
Puka, you go first. I took your driver last time.
Yeah, we talked about Brad Sweet just a little bit. Now, I was in Grand Forks on August 25th. They had that rain date on a Wednesday. He won that with last lap passed over Sheldon. And I think he snagged, so that's August, like I said, 25th. I think he snagged one out west or two in California, because that's where they went from here. They went out, they went to I-80, then they headed out west. They went to Rapid City, and then they went out and did that West Coast swing. And he might have grabbed one at Skagit or so, and that might have been his last win right around that early September. I was just looking here. He has 16 wins, so he had by far the most wins. But like you said, just has really cooled off. I said this last week, if there were betting odds for the World of Outlaw late models, I'd really like to see him, because I don't think he'd be your best odds heading into 2022.
And I've beat up on Brad Sweet enough, so I'm going to go a different route with this. I'm going to go, even though he's trying to chase a million this year, his two races at Charlotte did not help him reach the million mark. Brendan Overton was pretty much a non-factor the entire weekend in Charlotte, which is very, very unusual. You don't. I mean, he had a 22nd on Friday and an 8th on Saturday. You know, just not typical Brandon Overton.
Yeah, and he started on the front row and lost. He did win a week ago where he had to battle for the lead, but I mean, there's been multiple times over the last month he was leading big shows and got passed, which hadn't been happening a lot. So he's cooled down a little bit for sure. I'm going to stick with Sweet. I mean, he's got like 1 or 2 wins since August or whatever. I mean, it's just been. I mean, he won the championship. I think Puka hit the nail on the head. I mean, he is absolutely trending down. They're probably super happy there's a break right now. They're going to have to figure some stuff out because some of these teams, you take shots, you take gravel, you take Macedo. All of these are trending up. They're getting faster. And you know what they say? If you're the fastest car, you better get faster because eventually everybody else is going to pass you by. So they're going to have to figure out something with that 49 team if they want to do it again next year. So let's talk about our picks from last week. Puka, I don't think you got any right. So Bert and I each had JD. Bert, you had him on night 1. I had him on night 2. So we each got 1. Keith actually finally shown his sprint car expertness there. He had David Gravel, so he got 1. So Bert and I are tied on top at 32. So it's tight. We're close. There's not a lot of racing to be had, so it's going to be nip and tuck here forward. And Bert, I saw your picks, and we have the same picks for this week. We literally have the same picks. We're picking.
When are we calling this thing? The Gateway Dirt Nationals?
The December 31st. We're going to go right up.
Okay, we're going to go through the Winter Series, the Extreme Series, and
yeah, we'll just go up to the end of the year or whenever I have the lead. Whatever comes first.
I do want to point out that I did pick Gravel to win a race in Charlotte, just the wrong one.
Well, I'm gonna point out that I picked Overton night 1, right? I picked him at Cherokee, he got second. I picked Bishop, he got second, and then I picked JD and he got first. So if we did accumulated points on the late models, I'll win. So So this week
he's already talking tiebreakers, Bert. He's already behind the scenes.
We're into the tiebreaker stuff here. So here's the deal: we're picking Sonoya. They have the Peach State Classic coming up. We're picking the big event, $52,000 to win. Then the late model portion of the Duel in the Desert out in Vegas, 25 and 50, a possible 100 for a handful of drivers out there. So that's our picks for this week, and we'll see if we can get them posted up. But our sure bet of the week, okay? Now, the sure bet of the week, of course, that's brought to you by J. Schmidt Real Estate, okay? And just I'm going to point out here a little bit. This gentleman here, he's been in business, okay, for over 20 years already in the business world, multiple different businesses. The Schmidt family racers, right? Big Al Schmidt, he runs a street stock. Jay's ran late model and sprint car. Trajan Schmidt, he runs super stock, and now he's going to have a limited late model. This is the guy, right? If you're in the entire state of South Dakota, and I don't care if it's real, commercial or residential or land, I don't care what it is, support those that are part of our industry. Proven track record. He's going to take care of you. You're a racing person. If you're watching this show, if you need real estate transactions done, the sure bet of the week, J. Schmidt Real Estate. So, other than that, who do you guys have for your lock of the week?
My lock of the week is Ashton Winger will win at Sonoya. That's his home track, and I mean, Superman and Overton will be in Vegas, and it's just stars are aligning.
Puka.
Let's go, Brandon. In Las Vegas. Let's go, Brandon. We got Brandon Overton in Las Vegas for the $100,000 for him.
You keep saying "Let's go, Brandon," and your father-in-law is not going to be real happy. So, I had the same pick here as Bert. That's why we're tied for the lead, I guess. Ashton Winger's 5 for 5 at Sonoya. That's
I heard this year in a super late model, right? He's undefeated there this year, right?
He is. He is now. There's going to be some hitters there. I saw Clanton, Weiss, Jimmy Owens, Bronson. They're all going, right? So it's going to be a good field of cars. It'll be really interesting to see who gets more and who gets more quality. But I see T-Mac, and you mentioned JD going to Vegas, right? Which is weird because he's from Georgia, so, and the fact of the matter is he has not raced all the different XR shows. So he's driving all the way there for 50 grand to win, not an opportunity for 100. So he's actually, if you think about it, I guess it's a little bit more on first day. I think it's 25 and 50. I think it's 10 day one and 50. I think it's 10 day one and 52 on day two at the Peach State. So just a little bit more money, but that's a long way to travel all the way to Vegas for essentially the same money, right? So I'm quite surprised also, just like you were, that he's not going to Georgia. But
even T-Mac, T-Mac didn't race the USA Nationals. He didn't race the Prairie Dirt Classic. Now, obviously, he was in the points lead in the battle there, but really surprised from I guess, and that car sits in, either in Watertown, but I think it sits in Charlotte or Mega Plumbing. And I guess that's the other thing with JD. That's Last Landers. That's in Batesville. Potentially, maybe, I guess the season's over essentially. So maybe the thing's sitting in Batesville. So it's not quite as far as Blairsville, Georgia, but I was really surprised at those two, T-Mac and JD. And like I said, especially T-Mac, he kind of just raced that Lucas deal. I don't even know if T-Mac would have been at the World Finals this weekend if Mega Plumbing wasn't his sponsor.
And I think JD works out of a shop in Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure on that he works out of a shop. So it'll be interesting to see, and that's the promoting aspect, right? Because let's face it, Cedar Lake did it, USA Nationals, right? They're like, get up here to the USA Nationals, we'll pay your way, we'll give you some gas money, we'll take care of you. That's how they got that going. So maybe, possibly, that's what XR, maybe that's what Barry's doing. I don't know that for sure. Would not be a dumb move. It would be smart, right? If he's throwing a little cash at some of these high-profile guys to get them there. You got to do what you got to do. So it's interesting. I have Ashton Winger. That's my lock of the week. So last lap brought to you by Zulli Race Engines. Of course, Frank Zulli. Racers, if you need your engines, right? If you need a new engine, you need your stuff rebuilt, get a hold of Frank. Doesn't matter what class it's in. He can take care of you. Proven winners, national championship on the resume this year. And I tell you what, there's a lot of guys winning a lot of racing with Zulli's Race Engines. Get a hold of Frank. So little news. We talked about Jesse Glenn's, right? Transitioning over to a Rocket. Well, in fact, that Rocket was from Cullen. That was Brian Shirley's old car that he was in. And Shirley was in Rockets all year. Well, what's the news with Shirley down there this weekend?
Horns up. He's shaking down a new Longhorn, so a chassis change, and we'll see how that shakes out once he's behind the wheel in competition.
Yeah, he struggled a little bit, but I think it's a smart move getting it out now and getting some laps underneath them, so that way he can get that thing figured out, maybe for the end of the year or at least to begin 2022. So, Puka, I know you mentioned you had a couple things there that you mentioned on the World of Outlaw sprint car stuff. We'll touch on it more later, but you had something that stuck out to you there.
Which one?
Well,
I kind of put it all away for that show.
You did put it away, so we'll touch on that at a later date. So, with soda meetings coming up this weekend, second week of Deer Camp. With soda meetings over in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Lots on the docket. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Do you guys know much about the WISSOTA meeting?
No. Just what you've talked about. So you give us the 1, 2, 3 on what you think's going to happen, or maybe what's on the agenda. I don't even know what's on the agenda.
Yeah. So here's how it works, right? So essentially, WISSOTA is the promoters, right? But right now you got the WISSOTA promoters and the board. It's kind of more like this. It's not a cohesive unit. it needs to get back to being more of a cohesive unit. They're going to be voting on rules down there, a lot on the agenda. I don't know how much will get changed. We will know, though, by the next show what the updated rules are in all the different classes for 2022 for WISSOTA dirt track racing. We will know that. Now, couple of the things that I know are hot topics as far as rules go. One of them, carbon fiber drive shafts, looking at driver safety. That is definitely something being voted on this weekend. Another thing being voted on is quick change rear ends for the Midwest Modified Division, which personally I'm all for. I believe, and I might be wrong on this, but I think IMCA and USRA and maybe even UMP, I'm not sure in UMP, they're transitioning or already did over to quick changes. They're cheaper, they're safer, it's easier, it's less work, promotes traveling. I'm excited to see that transition. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but we'll find out. And, looking at it, right, I don't know if it's good or bad, right? Now, I want your guys' opinion. See, WISSOTA is a promoters association, and all the promoters, they have an opportunity to vote on these rules, take an active part in the organization. You look at the other sanctioning bodies, right? You look at USRA, IMCA. You look at these sanctioning bodies, they have a promoter, they have a decision maker. They might talk to the tracks, they may or may not. They may or may not talk to the drivers. At the end of the day, they have one person, they make the decision, end of discussion. What is a better formula? Is it better to have that one guy making the decisions, or is it better to have the tracks, promoters, and all that meeting, discussing it, and having a vote on it, essentially like a club or like a committee? Do you guys have an opinion there?
I mean, I think it's important to gather input from all the parties involved, but I think ultimately you need one person to be the final say, or a very small group, just 5 people or something like that. Trying to get a consensus in a large group is very difficult.
You should go to one of the meetings. I would agree. Puka?
Yeah, I think a better, quicker decision will be made by one. But I really want to know what you think. I mean, you're kind of on that promoter side, and obviously WISSOTA in and out. Like I said, I don't even know all the other. I know now because you said it. USRA, IMC. I don't really know how those worked. What are your thoughts?
With an association, with a voted on board, it just depends who's on the board, right? When you have all the promoters and they get a say, you're going to get a pretty big mix of people. If you have 7 people on the board and they're making the decision, as far as WISSOTA goes, right? You better hope they have knowledge about what they're voting on. Now, so it can go good or bad, but I'm ultimately a firm believer in you need to have a decision maker. I think it's just way better. I like what Bert said. Gather that input, get educated, understand what you're trying to make a decision on, and we'll see what happens. But I would essentially like to see decisions made by 1 or 2 or 3 people rather than everybody. Now, I want everybody to have input, but I've been to enough of those WISSOTA meetings to go, oh my gosh, you can't get 4 people to agree on anything, let alone 50 people. It's almost impossible. So it'll be interesting. We'll keep everybody posted, though. Bert, go ahead.
And I think part of the reason why it's so difficult to get people to agree to everything is WISSOTA covers such a large geographic area. I mean, you're in the Dakotas, you're in Wisconsin, and what's good in the Dakotas isn't necessarily what's good in Wisconsin. So that's why you need somebody to gather all the information and then make a decision based on what's good for the group as a whole, not one geographic area.
Well, they're working on that. They've been over the last couple of years, they've been doing everything they can to kind of shrink that geographic location. So they're working on that. Hopefully they don't work on it too much, because I want to see WISSOTA flourish. But
is there an agenda item to discuss how to
Measure the deck.
Rid the organization of comments from Ryan Aho.
I haven't seen. I have seen the agenda. My name wasn't on there, so that's good. But I have spoken with several promoters, and there's a lot of people that they want to change the direction of things a little bit. Everybody wants to work together. They realize that there's some issues there that need to be resolved, but everybody's got to work together like a cohesive group, and everybody's got to do their part in order to make that work. Instead of saying, that's WISSOTA, they're terrible, people got to remember, essentially, WISSOTA is the promoters, and the promoters are WISSOTA. It's kind of one and the same, so they all got to work together. We'll see what happens. But we got a couple big races coming up this weekend. We'll end with this. The must-see events of this coming week. Puka, brought to you by?
Yes, RV Share. Their link will be down in the show notes. If you have an RV that you'd like to rent for the winter, cold up here, deer hunting's going to wrap up. Got 2 more weeks here in Minnesota. Just let it go dormant. You could list it on there for rent, kind of like a VRBO. Where you could, during your off time, you could rent it out, or an Airbnb, kind of the same thing. Or if you're looking to maybe go to Arizona, the Wild West Shootout down in Vado this winter, or you want to go down to Florida for the race, you look to rent an RV, say go down there, RV Share, click the link. You can either make a little dough or find an RV to rent for a week, whatever you need. They'll take care of you there at RV Share.
Absolutely. So guys, I think we're all on the same page here. We have the Peach State, right? Is it the Peach State 50? Is that what it's called? Or Peach State Classic?
Peach State Classic. Yep.
Yep. That's Sonoya. Of course, that's Friday, Saturday, 10 grand to win for late models on Friday, 52 grand to win on Saturday. Of course, the Duel in the Desert, which is an all week deal, multiple classes, but the late models, of course, are the end of the week. I believe that's Friday and Saturday for them. 25 grand night 1, 50 grand night 2, but for a handful of drivers, it's 100 grand because they had what do they call it? The triple down, double down, triple down, or something like that. Something along those lines, where if they attended all the events, they doubled everybody's purse. The big story for me out of this guy is Brandon Overton. If he can win on the finale and pocket 100 grand, he will have a very good opportunity to get to that $1 million mark. If he doesn't, it ain't happening. What are you guys looking forward to this weekend between those 2 races, or anything else that you might have seen?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, those 2 races are the ones that I'm looking forward to. And I mean, Overton's quest for $1 million will take a huge step forward if he can win that $100,000 this coming weekend.
I echo what you're saying there too about Overton, and just the car count out in Vegas. It's not late model country. It's a little bit different than going to Vado earlier in the year. You got fresh equipment. It's been cold in winter. You've had some time to rest up. You go. Everyone's kind of wore out. It's been a long racing season. Another thing, how many laps is the feature? Remember Texas? What was it? 30 laps for 50 grand? Oh, it is 50.
Okay. It's either 40 or 50.
I think it's 40.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right. I think it is 40. So and really, it's 40 laps could be for 100 grand. Now, I got a question for you. Over and under at Vegas on late models, 24.
I'm going to go under.
I'll go over.
What'd you go, Puka?
I went under because considering Georgia's race, and I'm going to go under.
And Bert?
I'll go over.
You're going to go over. That'll be it. You guys going to bet a case of Mountain Dew on it like Skip and Shannon or what? It'll be interesting to see. Like you said, that's not late model country. You get out that direction. There's not a lot of late model racing to be had. A little bit in Oregon, right? There is some racing in Oregon, not so much in California. It'll be interesting to see who's out at the duel. We'll find out here this week. So, guys, always a pleasure. We had a little technical difficulty, but we merged it all together. We got it done. All good. But, Puka, take us home, buddy.
All right. Yeah, that does conclude the show. So if you liked it, please share. We appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe and subscribe. Jump over to our YouTube page and make sure you subscribe. I think we've got like 3,000 subscribers on Facebook. We got not even 300 on YouTube. So go over there and hit the subscribe button. If you got a YouTube account, we'd appreciate that. Lots to comment on tonight. The crown jewel. What makes a crown jewel? Kyle Larson. Is he the best ever? And did anyone else hear that Kyle Larson might, like I said, we thought it was maybe a year or 2 years ago that he might jump into an Indy car. If you heard something there, please comment. Christmas is coming. We've got swag. If you need something, get a hold of one of the three of us. Thanks to our partners as always: Dirt Track Supply, BuyRaceShirts.com, RV Share, Cowboy Up Racing, Zuli's Race Engines, Blue Line Brews, and you can comment here on the show. And like I said, if you ever want something a little bit more private, theonetogoshow@gmail.com, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us there. Like I said, we're over 70,000 on that one TikTok now. So the three of us are superstars on the One to Go Show TikTok page. And that basically concludes it. So what episode 105 in the books? Get out there and be your dream, your tune to the One to Go Show.